it was going to be a very immediate, big impact with Deila at Celtic because his strengths, as I see them, the man management, the tactical understanding, the focus on fitness and diet and those kind of things, they're more, I think, things you see the benefits from in more the longer term. So I was probably a bit more worried that it could have been even worse by now, not because I don't think he's up to the job, because obviously you wouldn't be surprised. I think he is, but also that it is his style and what makes him good, especially the man management, is probably the hardest part. There was to transfer that to a Scottish setting, and especially a setting as Celtic. So I think he's delivered about where I expected him to deliver. Even it was a shaky start with the Champions League or anything, but I think if somebody had given me would you have taken being still in full competition, top of the league, beaten Rangers by the end of January, I think you would taken that quite easily. So I think it's a promising start. I think he's done some mistakes. The good thing about Deila, I think he's very good at learning from his mistakes, and I don't think any of the mistakes have been irreparable in any sense. He's still a young manager. He's still going to learn to get used to a bigger setting in a different country. So overall, I think he's roughly where I expected him to be and Celtic to be now as well. I think, obviously what comes ahead is interesting. Is he going to manage to, move the team on and to another level as well? So, and then this is obviously we're going to come on to that, but this has been the first proper transfer window he's had as well, and the type of players he's brought in is very much, I think, the Deila kind of player as well.
I was going to ask Christian as well, are the Norwegian media still having an interest in Deila? Are they still kind of...
Oh yeah, I mean, the Norwegian media is... it seems like 50% of the Norwegian media is dedicated to British football anyway. So it is a big... They always follow him quite closely. I think obviously the game on Sunday was a big thing in Norway as well. So yeah, it's always... As I said, this is the biggest club a Norwegian manager has ever managed. So it's always going to be a huge interest in him. You probably have bigger interest in a big player for a club in England, because obviously England is more focused on it. But yeah, it's still most of his games are most of the Celtic games are shown live on one of the paid channels in Norway. So there's always opportunity to watch all the games.
And are they positive with the way he's going with Celtic in his career?
I think so. Yeah. As I said, you kind of, I don't know, maybe because Norway is a small nation, we're always a bit afraid that when somebody goes out in the big world, they're just going to make a fool of themselves and make all other Norwegians look bad. But I think it's where you expect it. I mean, obviously, I think the thing about, the Celtic Rangers thing is a big thing in Norway as well. And for people who's not just have a passing interest in Scottish football and football in general, even they will notice this result. And yeah, I think it's, if you look at it from afar, you probably go, yeah, that'll be a stabilizer for me, and that's be a good thing. And I think if he gets the League Cup, if you get the league as well, I think you'll have a Norwegian manager who's probably won the league in as big a league as any Norwegian manager has ever had. So.
He's kind of a big deal
for a Norwegian.
Because he is just keeping my mind there, obviously. Henning Berg. Who would you say is flavour of the month, shall we say, in Norway?
It's funny because Henning Berg, probably before he went to Legia, had the worst reputation of any manager in Norway. The clubs he'd had a brief good spell with his first club, but after that he'd shown no signs of being a good manager whatsoever. When Blackburn hired him, it was just a running joke in terms of, I know how he got the job because he's a former player, but I'm very surprised by the job he's done in Legia as well. I know that probably the club in Poland with the most money and the most resources, but he's impressed her as well. So it's the respect for Henning Berg in Norway is grudgingly, maybe not even grudgingly anymore, going quite up. I thought if Rangers had some more money, I'd love them to sign Henning Berg, because I honestly don't think he's a very good manager, and I say that with him even managing a team that beat Celtic quite easily. With Celtic managed by the Norwegian coach, I think it's a lot better than Henning Berg. But yeah, I think a lot of people in Norway, myself included, had not expected Henning Berg to be such a success. So he's making us eat our words quite a bit.
Honningberg. So,
Like it.
do I can. So transfer market or transfer window even. It looked like it could have been a bit shaky towards the end, but a couple of new faces in for Celtic. What are thoughts on Deila's first winter transfer market, Ciaran? I'm looking at you.
Positive. Very good. Good to get both Armstrong and Mackay-Steven early. So that's it. Like we said, we were saying earlier on, giving them that 6 months where there won't be as much pressure put on them because we've got the rest of the team just now as it is taking us through the campaign, but it gives them a good chance to kind of bed themselves into Celtic, what it's like, the pressures have been with Celtic, and just the whole kind of life in Glasgow. Both of them look, from what we've seen with United, they are very, very talented players, and it just seems like this was as their next step in progression. So they're going from United up to Celtic, so they're taking that next step in their career and enhancing it. Sounds like as well that Armstrong's quite a bit clued in, because I think I read somewhere, I read a paper that he's actually done a law degree out with his football. So, and it mentioned that you have to have something out with your football. So this is where maybe some players unfortunately go down the lines of kind of gambling addiction and stuff like that, because they've got spare time. Well, I think spare time's less nowadays than what it was maybe 5-10 years ago. I think there's a lot more training involved, but it's good that for a young boy, he's quite clued in. He's looking obviously late in his career.
He's got a limited career,
but he's also got he's using his time for something else. So I think that might help him to actually deal with the pressure. Hopefully, of kind of being at Celtic, he might actually be quite clued in, and
he's clearly a smart boy.
Yeah,
and he's it might have been Gallagher or one of the cynics was saying he's one of possibly the kind of happiest players you've seen to sign for the club with the signing. He just looks so keen and eager to actually be a part of it.
Was that Armstrong or Mackay-Steven?
That was Mackay-Steven, sorry, yes. But
still.
Yeah, that's good, isn't it?
I can't really think of a Celtic player who's had a dour face when they've wanted to sign for Celtic. I think most players are quite joyed to sign for Celtic.
Always.
But I think it's in terms of what the board has done as well, it's less than £2 million for two of the best attacking players in the league who are young-ish at least, and both seem to fit quite well into the system Celtic wants to play in terms of their mentality, the fitness, and also just their general outlook on life, even in terms of having the right attitude and all those kind of things as well. So I think that's a job well done in the transfer window.
So a very good point from Christian there as well. For under 2 million, we got both players in. Again, a lot of people, including myself, were actually kind of chastising the club for not meeting Dundee United's valuation quicker to get them in, saying just pay the money, they're worth it. Some people saying they weren't worth it, but again, Peter Lawwell playing a blinder, less than 2 million to get two very high quality players in.
I was actually pretty surprised that they let. That I can understand the reasoning behind letting Mackay-Steven go, but I was really shocked at the fee for Armstrong. Thought it was a little low, especially in terms of how financially stable Dundee United are. They had no need to sell the player. They made that pretty clear. But I don't know, maybe there wasn't as much competition or interest in him. And if they let it go into the summer, I think that's the last year of his deal, if I'm right in saying.
You're absolutely right.
So maybe the valuation's right if you look at it that way, but I thought it was a steal. Pretty pleased that we got both the players in. Christian had mentioned earlier on about Dundee United and Aberdeen getting stronger. One of the negative things in terms of Scottish football is that it weakens Dundee United quite significantly.
Our future League Cup final opponents as well, which is
that's
a bonus from our point of view.
I hope the two of them are guaranteed a ticket because they'll not be on the pitch. But
the United did actually bring in a couple of decent enough players to kind of replace him? Because they brought in the boy Muirhead.
There's. I mean, I've not really seen much of him, but apparently he's fairly highly rated, and I think they're expecting big things of the Telfer, the guy they got from Dundee United. So I mean, it's not like we've pillaged them to the point where they'll not be competitive.
So Dundee United got Telfer from Dundee United, huh?
Well picked up on, right? Aye. I made an arse of that, right? They signed him from our illustrious across the city rivals, not Partick Thistle, before anyone says it. They got him for 200,000. But he's supposed to be quite a highly rated player as well, so I still think they'll be competitive despite us taking arguably their two best players. And I'm kind of rambling now. So
no, I think it makes sense financially from Dundee United. It is quite unambitious, I think, in terms of a sporting sense. Particularly if you think about the League Cup final as well. Obviously, they can't play for Celtic there, but you're taking out two of the best attacking players, and there's no guarantee the players you get in will be as good or be as a drilled part of the system when they do come in. I kind of mentioned this on Twitter yesterday that one of the reasons why Strømsgodset was, when Deila was there, managed to overcome traditional big teams in Norway was that they made quite a conscious decision that they were not going to sell their best players to other Norwegian clubs. And they were quite clear with that with the players as well. They said, you can come here, you can develop. If you get a good offer from abroad, we won't stand in your way. But they were pretty clear, we're not going to sell to anybody, any of our rivals. And some of the clubs like Rosenborg was quite almost a bit on their high horse, saying, these are just, they're stopping people's career by doing this and anything. But it turned out to be right as well, because you are, even though you get your money in, you are bolstering your rival squad. So it's almost a shame in that sense, but it's obviously, I think it's again, the Celtic board and the management have played that transfer window very well, because it wasn't a given that Dundee United was going to go, okay, you can have him now. But they didn't dig in the end, and it turned out very well for Celtic.
And a lot of questions on Twitter. Apologies to any we miss out. A lot focusing on Mackay-Steven and Armstrong, or Hairstrong, as I like to call him. But the big question is, there's a huge amount of hair questions. But the big question is really, how do they fit in, and who drops out? We've got Robert Sherry asking that. We've got Brian Murray. We've got St. Pauli D, amongst others. Guys, how do those two slot straight into that squad? Are they first teamers? And if they are, who are we losing?
I don't know if they'll be first teamers. I think they'll maybe on the bench the weekend, but I can't see them going straight in the start. But maybe one of them actually, because one of them could play. I still think Stokes will keep his place for quite well, because we have said that he's kind of one of Deila's men. But then Commons, he's kind of had a couple of games now. He is getting a bit of form going. It might be hard, I think, for just them to all of a sudden drop them. So I actually think it might take a couple of games before they actually get a starting squad.
Yeah.
So I think they'll often have to get in the training and try and show what they can do and see if they can actually fit into the way the Celtic are playing just now.
Chris Sermanni, 1.8 million. Yep. Armstrong, not straight into the squad.
I know what Kieran's saying. He might not slot straight in immediately, but I reckon the ultimate aim is for him to be a first team player, and I think by the end of the season he will be. The first thing I'll say about Armstrong is, I think Deila's building a team that, and Christian will probably confirm this, he's building a team obviously that can play football but can really work hard as well. Because I'm thinking about that midfield, thinking of Johansson, Brown and Armstrong and all in that midfield. The work rate that they'll put in is frightening. And in terms of, if you're playing against teams like Inter Milan, or if you want to do anything in Europe, I think such a high work rate can compensate for some of the deficiencies, the differences in terms of ability and talent. And I think Deila's highlighted Armstrong as a guy that can put in a shift, if you will. And I think ultimately he will be a first choice player.
I think Armstrong is at first the most interesting one, because, as you said, he can play in a different kind of roles. I think for Celtic, he can play probably beside Brown. He can probably play the most attacking of those midfield three as well, and I think he can also do a job